On October 23, 2005, 200 years of history was celebrated at a stone monument at the foothills of Mount Kampira in Ago Shirahama. A drainage tunnel commonly known as Ago Waterways was completed over 200 years ago. To complete the project, there was intense emotional turmoil between the people of Ago and the Suzuki family for 3 generations. The abundant water supply in the drainage tunnel and waterways kept the local farming healthy for over 200 years. Through the many years, the raging Hiki River passed through the Ago waterways. In 2011, there was a flood, which caused great damage to the village of Ago. As a result, the intake port to the drainage tunnel was partially covered and is now no longer a functioning waterway. With declining birth rates, an aging population, and fewer farmers, it became increasingly difficult to maintain facilities for the waterways. With the lack of resources to meet facility costs, nowadays expenses have to be covered for. Presently, pumps are used for the waterways. Currently, the quality of life in Ago has improved. Now let's go back and see the history of the Ago waterways, which are in a remote area of the southern part of Kii Peninsula. The area faced many struggles between the local people and their leader.
この暗渠につきまして後世に引き継いでまいりたいとこのように考えておる次第でございます。
This is a story of a village leader, Shigeaki Shichiemon, who fought for his village. In the midstream area of Hiki River is the village of Ago. However, Ago village was on elevated grounds, so it was unable to use the river for agricultural purposes. Although there were reservoirs, there was not enough water to grow rice. As a result, the village was often damaged from droughts. Furthermore, whenever rice planting season came around, there was always non-stop conflict within the community.
Hey! The world is running short. They are fighting about it as usual.
That's enough. Each year, you guys always keep fighting.
Stop blaming us. We only use the same amount of water.
The water from the rice field is less than yesterday. For the people downstream, water is life or death.
Shut up! We have to save water. Don't fight.
Mr. Suzuki, don't say those sort of things. Please listen to what I have to say.
The villagers opposed issues regarding the water situation. It was a problem for village leader Sabureimon.
What's the meaning of this? Despite the deal being the Hiki River right before our eyes, there is a lack of water for the crops.
For village leader Sabureimon, the future of the village was a reason for concern. He imagined that the villagers were happy with the bountiful harvests. During the Edo period, Ago village depended on cow farming rather than rice cultivation, because water was scarce. The financing of the Kishu clan was supported by the annual rice tax of the commoners. It was a strict system where the government took 60% of the amount of rice harvested.
As expected, this year as well is nearly impossible to grow rice in Ago.
The people thought of it as a hopeless situation. Sabureimon would go to the river to think about the future.
If only Ago had waterways from the river upstream. Anyways, we will need to take accurate measurement.
Now, let's pass through Kii Peninsula down to Hiki River and explore what kind of place is Ago. Ago village is in a winding area in the midstream section of Hiki River. Before the completion of the waterways, the unfertile area was used for cow grazing, but today the area is used primarily for rice cultivation. During the Edo period, there was no advanced technology which made it difficult to survey the land accurately. As a result, Sabureimon had to make measurements over and over again. Eventually, he was able to find a way to transfer water from Hiki River to Ago.
That's it. At the foot of Mount Compila, if there is a drainage tunnel, then water from the river can directly be brought to Terayama. The water can directly pass through the entrance of Mukai Daira to the outlet Jingu Temple. This can't be the only way.
Mr. Suzuki, what do you want to show us?
Look at Mount Compila. If you are thinking of bringing water to Ago, then you have to dig waterway the foot of Mount Compila.
As a village leader, it was Sabureimon's job to think about the future of the area, even during times of struggle such as a great famine in the Kyoho era. Sabureimon surveyed the area over and over and tried to persuade the villagers. There by his side was his grandchild, Shigeaki, who was there to learn the way. Sabureimon's plan was so large. In the end, he was unable to implement his plans and passed away in 1752. During that time, Shigeaki was just 12 years old. In 1783, 31 years after Sabureimon's death, a great famine occurred nationwide, known as the Great Tenmei Famine. This was an era of worry, as it is said that the famine resulted in bad harvest for 7 years, and 100,000 people died from starvation. The uncertainty during the post-Sabureimon era has officially begun. Future drainage plans were passed down to second-generation Shichiemon, but it never came into realization. As a third-generation leader, Shigeaki Shichiemon, at the age of 43, experienced the Great Famine and as a result, came to fully understand his grandfather's large ambitions for the village. There were sad stories of an abandoned old mother in the mountains. Also, during the famine, Shigeaki's father passed away. All the villagers did not only feel uneasy about the future, but also they were strongly hoping for consistent rice yields. At last, Shigeaki said to himself,
Now is the time to carry out the project left unfinished by my ancestors.
whatever came his way, he was ready for it. Drainage construction required a huge amount of funds. Before beginning construction, Shigeaki gathered opinions from the villagers. Next, he explained how important drainage construction was for the future of the village. Everyone was moved by Shigeaki's words, but there were worries even before the construction began. The existence of the village was in dire trouble because the plan seemed too reckless.
Can the solid rocks from Mount Compila be removed?
Even if walls are dark, they will only collapse under the weight of the mountain. We could be executed if the project were to fail.
Mr. Suzuki, I agree with you. I believe in you.
I will follow you forever. Based on your actions, I will die for the completion of this project.
There were some who pledged to devote their life. Even if all the villagers were to quit, Shigeaki would complete the construction himself. But in a village of 80 homes and approximately 380 residents, Shigeaki felt the need to gain assistance from all the villagers. This proved to be difficult as the villagers had many conflicting opinions. However, in the end, Shigeaki was able to persuade all the villagers to cooperate in the project. There was even a smaller village upstream called Terayama, which consisted of only 20 homes. The village had shared the same waterway with Ago village at that time. However, Terayama village could not take part in the project, and so the burden of construction expenses became the sole responsibility of Ago. Shigeaki and the village representatives brought with them their ideas to the very influential Susami village leader.
Sir, every villager in Ago shared the same opinion, and so we ask for your assistance. It would be very much appreciated
The Susami village leader, who felt convinced, immediately submitted the petition to the county court. The court official was also very surprised by the petition.
You traveled this far just to make an assessment. What? How many years have you surveyed this area?
The plans for the Ago waterways were sent from the county court to the Wakayama Central Court. After careful consideration, central officials came to the village and began field assessments. The clan became cautious about the uncertain future of the excavation work, but in the end, they gave permission for the project. In the permission letter for the construction of the Ago waterways, there were government clan reforms pushed forward by feudal lord Harutomi Tokugawa. The reform gave approval for the construction of the Ago waterways. Harutomi encouraged the production industry, and so, the clan cleared land for the flood control project. For the first time in over 30 years, the time has arrived for the project.
Shigeaki, the feudal clan gave permission to you at last. Looking at your petition, I, from the bottom of my heart, understood your deep desires passed down for the past 3 generations. Ago will take responsibility for the completion of Mount Compila's excavation project. For a fee, the Kishu clan will complete the waterway from Jingu Temple to Ago village. I believe as well as a county officer share the same feelings of wanting to develop the area. Therefore, I order everyone in the village to come together and follow your lead.
In 1779, the drainage project had finally begun. In a sandbar, construction of a waterway to a drainage tunnel was made in the direction of the foothill of Mount Compira. There are still traces of the waterways to the tunnel to this day. During that time, the villagers collectively built the waterways. Now, let's take a closer look at the waterways that leads to the entrance of the drainage tunnel. Shigeaki took complete command of the project at the age of 59. The Mount Compira excavation project measured a total of 273 meters in length, running from Mukaidaira entrance to the Jingu Temple exit. At last, the first blow was swung at the foot of Mount Compira. To be able to work efficiently in the narrow water tunnel, Shigeaki placed tents for the miners, toolsmen, and blacksmiths on site in 2 areas of Mukaidaira and Jingu Temple. Working day and night, deep concentration and frequent substitutions were important to continue the excavation project. However, the solid rocks easily wore down the tips of the chisels, so blacksmiths were forced to do repair work every day. Shigeaki had to deal with many complaints from the miners about how difficult it was to dig through the solid rocks.
The rocks must be too hard. The solidness of the rocks will make this as a useful tunnel. It will not easily cave in.
Shigeaki purified his body in the clean river. He dug the tunnel with the miners while making chants. In 1801, after 3 years of construction, the length of the tunnel from Mukaidaira to Jingu Temple was only 90 meters. It was only 1/3 of the total length. Project was less than 10 centimeters a day, so it was said that labor costs were 5 cups of rice for each rock excavated. Eventually, the cost of construction increased 3 times the projected amount. Shigeaki became tired from both encouraging the unmotivated workers and taking the financial burden of the project. In the end, the project was suspended. As a result, the villagers began to vent their frustration at Shigeaki.
The collapse of this village It's all your fault.
All the villagers were very depressed because the existence of the village was dependent on the project. Now, what will the future hold for the village? All the villagers were exhausted. The suspension of the project was Shigeaki's fault. Everyone thought so, but did not say it out loud. Shigeaki knew this, but he needed to stay the course.
We cannot continue like this. The hopes of the villagers cannot be taken away. We will not have to share stories of suffering to our children and grandchildren.
Shigeaki stood up again and shouted at the villagers.
Everyone, now is the time for victory. Don't give up. The financial outlook was set. I will give my right to have the officials allow us to resume construction. Now is the time to unite.
Shigeaki, having established a financial outlook, went to the Sami County Court to persuade the officials.
Court official, please do not erase the dreams of 380 Ango villagers. Please allow us to suspend the waterway project for the time being and to allow us to finish construction of the canal from Jingu Temple to Ango village. I will give my life to have the project completed.
Shigeaki, I also have been watching the construction of the waterways for the past 3 years. I understand well your thoughts and feelings. The fight for existence of your village was definitely a sight to see. The clan will be held responsible for the completion of the Jingu Temple and Aga waterways. As a local officer, that's all I can do. The Kishu clan encouraged the villagers to continue the waterway project. There was a light of hope again, but this project was no easy task by any means. The villagers worked diligently from the early morning. It was difficult to dig a trench on the river's cliffside from Jingu Temple to Terayama. Now, let's follow the course of the waterways remaining today, which runs from Jingu Temple to Terayama. In 2 years, in 1801, the waterways were completed. The villagers' attitudes changed with the completion of the waterways. Also downstream, the village leader of Tanoi built a dam in Hiki River to send water to a basin in Tanoi. The people of Algo village were excited to hear the completion of the waterways in Tanoi. Now that the waterways were completed, the villagers had no other choice but to hope for the restart of the suspended waterway project. Fortunately, with the success of the Tanoi village waterways, funds from donators all over poured in. All the plans were flawlessly arranged. As a result, the villagers' morale greatly improved and construction resumed. However, as expected, it was extremely difficult to dig through Mount Kompira. The rocks were hard as ever, and so the miners had to replace many chisels. Eventually, the miners began to quit, one after the other. For Shigeaki, the biggest hurt was the miners quitting. But in all honesty, farmers without any formal training cannot replicate a true miner. There was a burning desire to resume construction, but that did not go as planned. Once again, Shigeaki was a center for blame, whether it be both good or bad.
The Huda Lord is kindly paying for the construction, so there is no reason to suspend the tunnel project. I will not care if you quit. I will show you all that. I can finish the project all by myself.
There in the tunnel was Shigeaki, firmly holding a stone chisel.
It is necessary to have schedule for this project. I will go to Sado to bring back workers. Dear, will somehow be able to raise enough money to travel?
Yes, dear, I will get you enough money somehow.
Up till then, the Suzuki family had been using personal property to fund the project. Fortunately, Shigeaki's wife was able to get enough money somehow. She lent him the money to travel and sent him off to Sado. He took the land route to Niigata and crossed over to Sado by boat. On the way to Sado, he was worried miners would not want to come to Ago. Upon arrival, Shigeaki found out that the gold mines of Sado were no longer prosperous. So it seemed like there was a possibility that miners would want to travel far distance for work. Shigeaki, who went to search for miners in Sado, relayed his message.
I am digging a drainage tunnel in the countryside of Kishu. But it's a very difficult project. Everyone gave up. It's a waterway project that determines the future of the village. Would you mind coming to Ango village in Kishu?
In the end, miners decided to go to Kishu with Shigeaki.
Now is the time to fight to the finish.
He instructed the miners to alter the digging route to avoid solid rocks. For that reason, he took command and made accurate remeasurements to find the best course of action. The project was not progressing as expected, even with the skilled miners. Eventually, the village funds reached its limit.
Can you at least pay interest, Mr. Suzuki?
Day after day, creditors would come to Shigeaki's house to make pressing demands. The Suzuki family used all of its wealth, and there was nothing left to do. Shigeaki devotedly committed himself to Buddhism and continued working while chanting the Lotus Sutra in the tunnel. Finally, in 1802, there was no choice but to abandon the project. At this time, he decided to quickly take active measures. When Hirata's ship arrived in Ago, he made an agreement with the ship official to keep the rice. In the end, he used the rice as repayment to his creditors.
You are true to your word, Mr. Suzuki. Are you really okay with that?
Sure. Now take it already and get out here.
After pulling off such a difficult task, Shigeaki left the future of Ago to his child and village officials.
Dear, thank you for supporting me up to this point. Tomorrow, I will go to Wakayama to turn myself in.
On Shigeaki's day of departure, when the villagers heard the news, they all gathered at his house to say a final farewell. They all knew Shigeaki Shichiemon very well, the village leader who stole rice to be used as tax to build waterways. The villagers were given hope and courage, despite all the criticism and shame he faced. Shigeaki expressed his emotions so passionately that everyone felt the pain that Shigeaki felt.
Even if I become crucified in this castle town, my spirit will remain in the waterway forever. Eventually, my spirit will watch over the village, full of the golden rice field.
With parting words, Shigeaki left for Wakayama. In the village outskirts of Mikagawa Valley, everyone bid their farewells as Shigeaki headed toward the hills of Tonda. It was 128 kilometers to Wakayama, and along the way he visited his main family's grave in Fujishiro. He apologized for being a disgrace to the Suzuki family, then stepped foot into Wakayama Castle. Shigeaki, who turned himself into the council of Wakayama Castle for annual rice tax fraud, explained the whole situation and demanded to be executed. While determining whether or not to crucify Shigeaki, the head of the Suzuki family visited the castle to plead in his defense. At the council office level, it was forbidden to use any political power, so eventually it became crucial to seek judgment from the feudal lord.
Here comes the feudal lord.
Harutomi Tokugawa, at the age of 19, became a feudal lord, not only known for culture and arts, but he was also commonly called the Kishu clan reformer because he improved the clan government system. How will he judge the Shigeaki annual rice tax fraud?
Shigeaki, your work was great. Since the founder of the Kishu clan in the 17th century, you and your family have unselfishly been devoted to the Kishu clan and the village. You put in relentless effort to complete the project, which will go down in history. I was deeply moved by your willingness to improve the village. I will not press any charges.
Furthermore, Shigeaki was awarded with the Kishu flag and silver with great admiration. The reputation of Shichiemon was shared from village to village. Despite being commoners, large crowds gathered together with the Kishu clan flag in hand to send off Shigeaki. When Shichiemon reached Ohechi Road,
He's here! He's here! Our village leader has returned!
the people of Algo village were consumed with deep emotion with the return of a miracle. Encouragement came from young to old, and the project was resumed with utmost confidence. Then a year passed. In January 1804, the sound of hammering could be heard on the other side of the tunnel. The sound grew louder day by day, and in 1805, the tunnel was finally connected. The project went exactly as planned without any imperfections.
Yes! At last!
The day was welcomed with cheerful voices of the villagers gathering in the narrow tunnels. 6 years after completed construction, a water gate was opened. Water was quickly sucked into the tunnel.
The gate is open. Here comes the water.
Shouted the villagers running towards Algo village from Mount Kumpira. Meanwhile in Algo village, 1.5 kilometers from the tunnel, the joyful voices of the dancing villagers echoed throughout the mountains in every which direction. Upon completion of the waterways, Algo villagers were very much pleased. On the other hand, the people of Terayama village who did not make any contributions were saddened.
It can't be helped that you think only about the near future. Don't share the water without our permission.
Don't be doing anything you want.
Upon hearing this, Shigeaki warned the villagers.
Isn't it better to share the extra water with Terayama rather than throwing it away? It's not good to keep the water by ourselves. If everyone benefits, there will be no more arguments about the water. We can really save villages from droughts. That's truly an incredible accomplishment.